Okay, last night we didn't learn, but 2 nights ago, downstairs, we were learning about the criteria, what makes a melacha, which is forbidden things to be done on Shabbos, what makes them biblical. There's like 5 conditions, which if it's not done in any one of those 5 conditions, all 5 conditions, then it's only rabbinically forbidden versus biblically forbidden. For instance, the first way is, we're not going to discuss, we'll discuss each one of the 5 as we go along. The first one is, it has to be done the normal way of doing it. If you do it differently than the normal way of doing it, it's only rabbinically forbidden. For instance, cutting nails on Shabbos is biblically forbidden. It's called shearing wool, like the melachot of shearing wool. If you cut your nails on Shabbos, it's biblically forbidden. It's like shearing wool. But normally, how are nails cut? With a clipper, with a scissors. If somebody bites their nails, you're still doing it, but you're not the normal way it's supposed to be done. So it's still rabbinically forbidden. It's not allowed, but it's only rabbinically forbidden, not biblically forbidden. The other day we discussed another example of this would be if a right-handed person writes with his left hand, or a left-handed person writes with his right hand. Because again, it's not the normal way of a person to do it. So therefore, if they did it with the opposite hand, it would only be rabbinically forbidden, not biblically forbidden. But that poskim right is only applicable to writing. Let's say somebody turns on the light with the left hand. They're right-handed, but they turn on the light with the left hand. That's called the normal way of doing it. The only problem for a right-handed person basically is to write with his left hand, and a left-handed person to write with the right hand. So that would be called a change, which is only rabbinically forbidden. Therefore, we mention in a practical sense, for instance, if a woman is going to the hospital to have a baby, we mentioned this the other day, and they have to sign papers. So, halachically, if you have no choice, you could sign papers, because a woman giving birth is called pikuach nefesh. It's a life-endangering situation. But if somebody can sign the papers with their left hand instead of the right hand, it's better because it only makes it rabbinically forbidden. Okay? Another thing is,
Get a ticket in Shabbat, the one who signs.
Jaywalking ticket. Yeah, it happened in the city here a few times. You should really try not to jaywalk and therefore not get a ticket. You know, the world says the sin is not stealing, the sin is getting caught.
What did the world say? Say it again.
Okay. So, if you do it with a different way, for instance, there's a light switch, yeah? And you flick it with your elbow. Now, normally you don't do it with an elbow. If somebody does it with an elbow, it's still forbidden. In all practical purposes today, there's no difference. But if you do it with your elbow, then it's only rabbinically forbidden. If you kick it with your foot and turn on the light switch, so then again, it's rabbinically forbidden. If you have a lamp that's a foot pedal, so then if you do it with your foot, then you're chai, because that's the normal way of doing it. If you do it with your hand, then it wouldn't be the normal way of doing it. So bottom line is, any melacha that is done differently than it's normally done, so then it's called rabbinically forbidden, it's not biblically forbidden. Which again, also even coming back to a hospital, let's say, if somebody needs to call the nurse, so normally you press the call button, okay? So if possible, you shouldn't push the button with your finger, because that's the normal way of doing it. You should with your back of the hand, with your elbow, just a little bit differently than the normal way you're doing it, then at least you're only doing something rabbinically, which you're allowed to in a hospital. But it's better to be transgressing only rabbinically rather than biblically. What? Delayed switches are also a problem. The only question is, we'll get to that, there's another criteria, if it's direct versus indirect. If it's direct versus indirect. I'll give you, because it's not directly going on. So it's you're pressing the button, indirect, it's going to go on 5 minutes later. I'll give you a better example that people don't even think. You turn on your faucet, yeah? On Shabbos, cold water, you turn on the faucet. Where does the water go?
In the drain.
Good. Goes in the drain. And there, where does it go out to? Why isn't that carrying on Shabbos? If I throw something, I'm carrying it.
No, you're throwing it out.
If somebody throws something, it's carrying. The Gemara, no. The Gemara says it is. He's saying it's not.
Carrying is very explicit. You carry it yourself.
No. Carrying is any way I make something move from here to there. If I kick it, it's carrying. If I blow it, it's carrying. If I throw it, it's carrying. That's the halacha. That's all part of carrying. And it's a normal way of... Huh? It doesn't matter. So the answer is, it's only indirect by the time it gets out there. It's going into this pipe, into that pipe. So it's very indirect. By the way, that's the reason why it's allowed. Otherwise, it wouldn't be allowed. What?
When it comes to the Rabbanon, could we ask somebody directly to do the Rabbanon?
No. Rabbinic prohibition is only permitted to ask a goy, which itself is rabbinic. So it's a double rabbinic. It's only allowed tzarech mitzvah, if it's for the sake of a mitzvah. For a choila, then you don't even need, you can ask a guy directly to do it, even a biblical malacha. And that's basically it. Because otherwise, sometimes it's a mokum hefsid meruba, sometimes halacha says you could be mekel, big tzarech rabbim, tzarech Shabbos, so then some poskim are mekel.
So if it's v'derabbanan, it sounds like it's not any more lenient to ask.
That's what I'm saying. Practically speaking, today there's absolutely no difference. The only difference is for somebody who's sick, chayla. There's a difference if, again, like we said, to write in a hospital or something like that. Sometimes, if it's a doubt and it's a rabbinic prohibition, sometimes you're lenient. Practically speaking, today, in our world where there's no carbon, there's no skila, there's no, right? There's no difference if it's rabbinically forbidden or biblically forbidden.
So I guess the bigger question is, a derabbanan on top of a derabbanan doesn't become, because you mentioned with the water first, a quick moment, that it's sort of like an indirect on top of an indirect on top of it, so you can throw water down the drain. So I guess the question is, if it's in the derabbanan, to not ask a guy for starters, and on top of that, you're asking a guy hypothetically to do an Isser Shabbos, which is a derabbanan, does that weaken the Kaddish?
Shvus, it's called in halacha, shvus to shvus. Shvus to shvus is only allowed b'makom mitzvah or b'makom chayla, and then they give you one shvus is enough. Or sometimes tzarech rabbim, sometimes hefsid meruba, sometimes tzarech Shabbos gadol.
What's the last one? What's tzarech Shabbos?
You have no food to eat on Shabbos. Okay, then can you ask a guy to bring food to a Carmelist, let's say a rabbinic, so that would be allowed. But normally you can't do it like that. Okay, next. Another thing, it has to be, what? Let me tell you something. The heter of people telling goyim to do things is way misconstrued. Because halachically, sometimes if the guy is doing it for you, you have to stop him even if you didn't ask him to do it for you.
Actually, now in Jews, the Shabbat boys, the educated Jews, they tell them to do this. There's no, you can't do it
Because of this, yeah, the guy are more learned than the Jews. Okay. The next thing, which classifies something to be biblically forbidden, if it's constructive and not destructive. For instance, if somebody rips a bag. Now, one of the melachos is kereah, tearing. So what happens if you just destroy a bag? Because it's not constructive, it's only rabbinic. Which is the reason, by the way, why you're allowed to tear bags for food on Shabbos, providing there's no letters. Because if you're tearing the bag in a place where there's letters, so then you're also desecrating the erasing, meichik. Erasing is biblically forbidden.
Why isn't it considered as making it clean when you open up a bag of chips?
Because if you're ruining it, then you're not making it a cake.
If you open the bag.
No, if you take a bag, because you ruined the bag. If you have a bag of potato, 1 second. If a bag of potato, it's late. No, it's not. If a bag of potato chips is glued on top, like they are, right?
Yeah.
And on Shabbos you take it and pull it apart like you would normally during the week. You cannot do it on Shabbos. Why? Because you're ripping without destroying. You're not destroying anything. It's glued together, you're just separating it. But it's glued, so now if you want, you destroy the bag. Now when you destroy when you cut the bag in any place, it's not the same bag that it was.
It was destroyed?
Yeah.
So it's not a clean?
Right. It's not stam allowed, it's still rabbinically forbidden, but for food, the chachamim allowed it.
I'm lost on that one. If it's rabbinically forbidden, why are we permitted to do it?
Because the chachamim said for food, you could do it.
So that's the exception.
Right. Or not only food, what happens if you have paper plates? I mean, things pertaining to food related, or, yeah. So then, because you're destroying it, and it's Tzerech Shabbos and this, so then the Chum said you're allowed to do it.
But if the letter in the tea bag, you cut the top, and the letter is destroyed, but it's legible, just the tip of the...
No, if you rip it in half, even if it's legible, it's still forbidden. What?
Some bags after you rip them, there's a ziplock under it.
Those bags that you rip off the top and then it's still reusable, that's a much bigger shot halacha, because then you're not destroying it. You're making it more usable.
Unless you rip it on a different area.
There's an interesting shaila about opening soda bottles on Shabbos. Yeah? I'm going to take his bottle. You have a bottle. Yeah? No, it's okay. You open the bottle cap. So sometimes there's letters on it. On the ring. It's stamped. Whatever, it's stamped on there. Those bottles you can't open on Shabbos because you're ripping letters. 1 second, it doesn't matter. If it's on the rip area that you open the bottle, you cut the letter in half, that's called erasing on Shabbos.
A number is the same as a letter?
Number is still the same thing. And I said to them, I can't understand 1,000,000 times why the from wine companies...
Do that?
No, and the cork. A lot of times, open a wine bottle with a cork, you see the cork has letters on it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Then you take the corkscrew and you stick it in there. One letter is still biblically forbidden.
Why it's not a word? It's a letter.
2 letters is skila. 1 letter is chotzi shir asim and atayra. Half the amount is still biblically forbidden. So here you're destroying it, but still rabbinically forbidden, even 1 letter.
Logo is the same?
A guy can open it.
No, logos.
Logos is the same thing. Logos. Logo is a picture, a letter is also written. Are you allowed to draw a picture on Shabbos? Why not? What malacha is drawing a picture on Shabbos? Writing, good point. Writing. So when you destroy, they used to have, it's not as common now, a few years ago, birthday cakes, they put the pictures of the kid on the birthday cake. You ever see it on the, what I'm talking about? All the bakeries are doing it. It's a big hit, The kids had the picture on the cake.
They got creepy and stuff.
Yeah, they got creepy. Yeah, but now the question is, you want to cut a piece of cake on Shabbos?
But you could if it's not separate, like frosting on top of...
It's not so simple. If it's frosting, that's a machlekes.
The tea biscuits.
It's a machlekes about if it's in the thing itself or not.
This is the same thing. It's the cream.
It's not the first of all, that not everybody holds you allowed to.
I thought we do. I thought the tea biscuits, if it's engraved.
If you put in the whole mouth in your mouth at one time, then you could do it. No. So you understand? So then you're destroying a picture also. Even when they used to write, the Frum bakeries don't do it anymore. One second. The Frum bakeries don't do this anymore. They used to write happy birthday on the cake. Then you cut the cake, you're cutting letters. So now what they do is, they write on a piece of cardboard. If it's expensive, it's chocolate. If they're cheap, they put it on a piece of cardboard. They smear chocolate cream on the front and back. It's much cheaper than a piece of chocolate. And then they write happy birthday and they stick it on, then you take it off. What did you want, sir? Louder.
There's cookies and it says the name of the cookie.
On the cookie.
And you eat it on Shabbos, so you're like...
If you put the whole thing in your mouth, at one time you could do it.
And what do we do with 2 bites?
Shouldn't do it. Not according to the Alter Rebbe. Other people say you can do it.
With the wine, but this is mamish a big deal. So would you theorize that when you take the corkscrew out, it pops back in place, you never
Doesn't.
destroyed it?
Sure, it destroyed it. The only heter with this stuff is, stop. If you have letters written here, like the library books at Beverly Hills Library, some shuls, they don't want you to steal the books. So if it's on the front page, people rip out the page and take the book off. You know the way Jews do. So now the question is, if I have letters written here?
You can say it's originally ripped already.
No, so the question is, can I open or close the book? Is that called writing or erasing? So the Alter Rebbe brings down 2 days, and the Alter Rebbe writes you're allowed to.
Because you never destroyed it.
No, he doesn't say that. He says, you're not writing or erasing. The letters are all there. You're just bringing them closer or putting them further apart. Take 2 alphabet letters.
Scrabble. You could play Scrabble and Jaws.
You can't, for 2 other reasons. Number 1, you write the moves, the score, so you can't write.
Forget that. Put score aside.
No, you can't do it. And secondly, if it's the luck Scrabble that the letters fit into the grooves, then you can't either. Okay, that's not for now.